Think of your community as traffic. When the traffic lights are functioning, drivers usually behave, break a light, and everything comes to a standstill. Within our bodies, we could liken that broken traffic light to DNA mutation, one that has the potential to mess up our body's everyday operations. So where lighting might knock out a traffic light, what causes mutations in DNA?
Tattoos are a popular form of self-expression and artistry, allowing individuals to adorn their bodies with meaningful symbols and designs. Whether you're considering getting your first tattoo or adding to your existing collection, it's important to choose a design with a significance that resonates with you.
Steel is an alloy of two elements, iron and carbon. Steel alloys vary in the ratio of iron to steel as well as any additional metals present. For example, to create stainless steel, you would combine steel with chromium. Carbon steel contains a higher percentage of carbon, making it stronger than other steel alloys.
Spring water comes from a protected, underground water source from which the water flows to the surface on its own. It may be collected either at the surface spring or through a sanitary, protected hole drilled directly into the source feeding the spring. If the water is collected through a hole drilled into the source, it has to have exactly the same composition as the water in the surface spring.
If you plan to keep a supply of bottled water at home, you should store it at room temperature or colder, out of direct sunlight, and far from any chemicals or solvents. For instance, don't put it near any gasoline or paint thinners. Your garage is probably not a good storage place for bottled water.
Where the driver's blink was surprisingly predictable, the team found the drivers had a shared pattern of blinking that had a strong connection with acceleration, such that drivers tended not to blink while changing speed or direction, like while on a curve in the track, but did blink while on relatively safer straightaways.
Effective healers accompany sufferers on a journey toward wellness. Healing tools include the deft use of suggestion, confession, memory, ritual, and medicines. Healers find ways to provide consolation and hope, enabling their wounded charges to engage with meaningful work and find purpose in life. Teenagers in the United States are in crisis. That news got hammered home earlier this year following the release of a nationally representative survey showing that over half of high school girls reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness, common words used to screen for depression. Almost a third of teenage boys reported same feelings.
Spider silk is prized for its unrivaled strength and toughness, but figuring out a way to mass produce it is no easy feat. Spiders cannot be put to work to pump out the fibers the way silkworms can. They're extremely territorial and inclined to eat their neighbors, and they refuse to keep at the task for long.
Math has a reputation for supplying concise, black or white answers to questions. Getting straightforward math questions right or wrong is often presented as the litmus test of whether someone has mathematical ability. But that view of math is simplistic rather than a tool for obtaining objective right answers. Math is a method for asking questions and exploring the possibilities those questions raise.
It's unclear why the animals look forever young, but it may be because their native lakes never dried up, at least not before Spanish colonizers started draining lakes near present-day Mexico City to control flooding in the 1600s. Other amphibians that live in areas with transient streams or lakes mature from water, living young into adults capable of thriving on land or in water.
Many animals use different modes of communication simultaneously, just as humans use body language and gestures while talking. Any actions made immediately before, during, or after uttering sounds could provide important context for understanding what animal is trying to convey. Traditionally, researchers have catalogued these behaviors in a list known as an ephegram. Dreaming happens mostly, though not always exclusively, during rapid eye movement sleep. During this sleep stage, brain activity looks similar to that in a waking brain, with some very important differences. Key among them, during REM sleep, the areas of the brain that transfer memories into long-term storage, as well as the long-term storage areas themselves, are relatively deactivated. Humans evolved for and adapted to conditions on Earth, move us off our planet, and we start to fail physically and psychologically. The cancer, risk from cosmic rays, and the problems that human bodies experience in microgravity could be deal breakers on their own. Moreover, there may not be a viable economic case for sustaining a presence on another world.
Early farmers, the revised story goes, migrated from Western Asia toward Iberia and brought table vines with them. Along the way, the farmers crossbred the table vines with local wild grapevines. The earliest crossbreeding probably happened in what is now Israel and Turkey, creating muscat grapes, which are high in sugar, good for eating and fermenting. Now, a growing body of research says any alcohol raises the chance of premature death from a variety of causes. About half of cases of liver disease are attributed to drinking. Alcohol is also a potent carcinogen. It can cause cancer because it breaks down in the body to form a compound called acetaldehyde, which damages DNA. That damage can lead to at least 7 types of cancer.
It's logical for humans to feel anxious about artificial intelligence. After all, the news is constantly reeling off job after job at which the technology seems to outperform us. But humans aren't yet headed for all-out replacement. And if you do suffer from so-called anxiety, there are ways to alleviate your fears and even reframe them into a motivating force for good.
High-speed internet access has become crucial in a world where school, business, personal life, and emergency communications increasingly take place through a handheld device. But surprisingly large swaths of the US still lack a speedy enough broadband or cellular connection. One potential solution could be a sixth-generation cellular network, which experts say will add a space-based system to ground-based coverage options.
There are alien minds among us, not the little green men of science fiction, but the alien minds that power the facial recognition in your smartphone, determine your creditworthiness, and write poetry and computer code. These alien minds are artificial intelligence systems, the ghost in the machine that you encounter daily. In 2022, Europe saw more cases of locally acquired dengue than in all of the previous decade. The rise marks both a public health threat and a corresponding market opportunity for dengue vaccines and treatments. News that should spur the pharmaceutical industry to boost investment into the neglected disease. For decades, astronomers have endeavored to forecast with confidence the fate of planetary systems, including our own, throughout the cosmos. And these experts' predictions have one central principle to confidently guess what will eventually befall a planet. You have to know the size of its star. As terrible as whatever visions that are running through their head might be, waking someone from a nightmare is more likely to ensure that they'll remember the bad dream. And if someone appears physically distressed in their sleep like this, it's more likely that they're having a night terror than a nightmare. Night terrors are different neurological experiences.
Fossilized human footprints found in New Mexico's White Sands National Park were almost certainly made more than 20,000 years ago, during the height of the last ice age, according to new research. The study, published on Thursday in Science, overthrows decades of thinking about when humans arrived in North America.
Extreme heat is a major public health threat, especially when it isn't seasonable and where people are less acclimated to higher temperatures. Among the most vulnerable populations are the very young, the elderly, those with existing health conditions such as heart disease, and those without access to air conditioning. People who work outdoors are also particularly susceptible to heat illness and heat stroke. People seeking a kidney transplant often have to wait years for a donor organ to become available, and many die before ever receiving one. Xenotransplantation, in which organs from one species are transplanted into another, could alleviate the organ shortage. But bridging millions of years of evolutionary divergence between two species is a tall order. So for decades, organ xenotransplantation was largely impractical. Many ancient people associated the auroras with fire, which is understandable. The sky can glow with ripples of yellow and red, as if is itself a flame, or perhaps instead reflecting some distant over the horizon conflagration on the ground. But the lights come in many other colors. Green is the most common, and purple and pink make appearances. Sometimes auroras can even glow an electric glow. Every line interaction relies on a scaffolding of information stored in remote servers, and those machines, stacked together in data centers worldwide, require a lot of energy. Around the globe, data centers currently account for about 1 to 1.5% of global electricity use, according to the International Energy Agency. And the world's still exploding boom in artificial intelligence could drive that number up a lot.
Scientists have found no evidence that natural forces have contributed to our planet's current global warming problem. But a middle school student reading a cursed new book from the nation's top science textbook publisher might think otherwise. Due to both human and natural activities, the child would read, the amount of carbon dioxide in the air has increased.
Researchers have created the largest atlas of human brain cells so far, revealing more than 3,000 cell types, many of which are new to science. The work, published in a package of 21 papers today in Science, Science Advances, and Science Translational Medicine, will the study of diseases, cognition, and what makes us human, among other things, say the authors.
Unicorns roam free in fantasy novels and children's stories, not so much in the real world, much less the cold, analytical ones of math and philosophy. But it turns out that these logical disciplines are only one misstep away from proving the existence of the long-adored mythic creatures or proving any absurdity.
Antibiotics either directly kill bacteria or slow their growth, leaving the immune system to finish the job. The drugs work in several ways by preventing bacteria from building steady walls or making copies of their DNA. For instance, growth-slowing antibiotics usually disrupt ribosomes, the factories in which bacterial cells make proteins. Valley fever's mortality rate is about 1 death per 1,000 infections, according to infectious disease physician John Gargione, director of the University of Arizona's Valley Fever Center for Excellence. It doesn't need to be so high. There are medications to treat it, but patients often receive incorrect diagnoses. Cats have nailed this one thing so well that they all do it and just come up with slightly different sizes. That's why they're perfect. Evolutionaria. They don't need variation. They might get bigger or smaller, but they don't change anything else because they're doing it just right otherwise. They're not jacks of all trades. They're masters of one.